Welcome to One-on-One with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili, and thank you for joining us on this episode of One-on-One. Mr. Leggett, welcome, and thank you for sitting down with us once again.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Before we start, it's the end of the summer, and sure enough, I want to ask you, how was your summer?
Well, much busier than I'd anticipated. I thought at the beginning that this would be a more relaxed summer, but we had the tremendous power outages with the storm, the derecho, followed by a number of buses that were fire, and that we had to alter some of our bus routes and eliminate some of the buses out of our fleet. So it ended up being a much more involved summer than I'd anticipated. I wanted to sort of take it off, take it easy a little bit, and maybe take a little bit of time for vacation, but unfortunately, I did not have time for much of a vacation this summer. But business here at the county comes first, and therefore we had to respond to a number of challenges right here in Montgomery County.
So no vacation this summer for the county executive?
Not much. I think the longest I'd taken off like 4 days, and so it wasn't the 2 weeks that I anticipated.
Okay. Well, everything was not chaos in the county, thankfully, and there were some positive results of your involvement, especially the county's emergency medical transportation insurance reimbursement, which you entered into an agreement with the Volunteer Fire Department and Association. It's not going to go to a referendum in November, and it will be into effect on January 1st. So give us a little bit of background as to how you were able to reach this agreement this time around.
I think the parties were always much closer together than people realize. I think when you realize that, the volunteers as well as the career firefighters, leadership, myself, all want what is the best for Montgomery County. Our volunteers have provided tremendous service over the years. They've provided a cooperation system that really enhances the overall system and allows the entire system, if you look at it, to significantly reduce the cost they would otherwise have to bear, but for their participation in work. So their interests and our interests have always been the same. How can we best serve the public safety of Montgomery County with our fire and rescue services? And so that's number one. And secondly, what we did this time was to put into the legislation many of the things that we've talked about in the past. For example, the legislation actually called for some form of reimbursement or cost sharing with the volunteer corporations. That was our intent all along, and we had talked about that before. But in this case, the second round, we actually placed it in the legislation itself. And so people are shocked saying, oh, there must have been some private or secret deal. No, if you go back and look at the original legislation introduced back in March, you'll see that it calls for some contribution by the county to the volunteers.
What is that contribution?
The contribution will be about 15%, but it's not contributions outside of the system. It is simply another component of the regional system itself. And we were able to come together on some other challenges that we've been fighting with in the past about labor negotiations with the volunteers that I think will place us in terms of notification, getting them much more involved earlier in the process, would inure to the benefit of everyone. And so we were able to reach an agreement of parties that were not that far apart to begin with. And I think it's an agreement in the best interest of all the citizens of Montgomery County. Now, I'm asked on occasion, why is it that we had an agreement here? And why, if we had an agreement now, this is in some way disrespectful of the rejection by the voters 2 years ago? The answer to this is no. 2 years ago is a long time in public life today on a referendum matter. You changed the entire Congress in 2 years. A lot has happened in that 2-year frame. And if we did not have this agreement, it could mean that we would have to pay more out of our tax dollars in order to help provide the system with the kinds of services that we want. Keep in mind that we're growing in Montgomery County. We need additional personnel, additional equipment, additional stations. All of those things require some form of revenue, and I will fund those things. The question is, from what source of money will we continue to fund that? Would it be from other entities within the counties, from the libraries, recreation? Would it be from higher taxes? Or would it be, in effect, from other sources of revenues? And I thought the revenues from the reimbursement from the insurance companies was a better route to go. And so this is what we've done.
It's estimated to generate about $18 million in the first year. Where is that funding going to go initially? as
Well-
far as the county's fire and rescue
Well,
department?
not only initially, but it is dedicated in perpetuity, the way the legislation is drafted, to the fire and rescue services. It would mean additional fire engines. It would mean additional personnel that we have to hire. It would mean additional equipment. It would mean additional training. All of those things are part of what we need to do because, again, the county is growing. And what happens with this is that we will have an increased response to the needs of our citizens. And that will help us to lower the response time. By lowering the response time, obviously that helps to prevent the loss of life. And that's the beauty of this system.
I know you've said this a million times before, but if you're uninsured in Montgomery County, no problem dialing 911, correct?
None. In fact, our fire and rescue personnel will never even ask you whether or not you have insurance or not. It's a seamless process. You go to the hospital, when they fill out all the forms for the various components of payment that you make, they just send one bill to the insurance company that's reimbursed directly to Montgomery County. And so there's no disruption of service. People who may be concerned about that, don't worry. If you do not have insurance, simply call us and we will provide the service that we provide each and every day. The $18 million that we were talking about, our estimation is that $18 million comes from the federal government by way of Medicaid and Medicare and from private insurers. So it does not anticipate having any resources at all from people who do not have insurance.
Reaching this agreement with a volunteer fire department, would you say that has improved relations with the county, of course, and the county's fire and rescue department?
I think it provides the foundation for improved relationships. And what I mean by that is you get one big hurdle out of the way. What we need to do now is execute on the things that we have both signed to do. And I think there's a goodwill to do that. Again, I believe very firmly in a two system. I believe that our system that we have, our volunteers and career firefighters, is an excellent system and one we should preserve. And we start with that fundamental premise. I think that we can work from that. But I don't like to go on just signed documents. I like to go on action. And the action that we both have pledged to provide in terms of implementation are the things that I think we should do going forward. And that will provide an excellent system and reduce any remaining tensions that may exist.
Well, that's great news. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. We still have plenty more to talk about. We'll be back. Welcome back to 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili, and thank you for continuing to watch. Mr. Leggett, we talked about the EMS. Let's talk about now going back to school routine. It's back in the county for the 202 schools and about 149,000 students. We had the superintendent on our Spanish language radio show last week, and he was talking about the challenges for the school year this year. And those challenges are mostly getting parents involved. It's a very diverse school system. 164 languages are spoken in our classrooms. You've been involved with Superintendent Dr. Starr, and give us your assessment of what this school year should look like.
Well, it's an exciting one, and I've had the opportunity to go and to visit many of our schools throughout the system, and I believe very firmly in the education of our children. Last night I had an opportunity on a trip that I returned from, and I had an opportunity to talk to a state senator from the state of Oregon. And when I mentioned that I was from Montgomery County, the first thing that she mentioned was the public schools, how successful are the schools, and how she's heard about schools all over the entire country. The success record of our school system is something to be very proud of, but we should not rest on our laurels. The 149,000 students that are in the system today deserve the best education that we can provide them, the best teachers, the best personnel, the equipment, and also the structure, the buildings that they are going to be housed in. We need to provide them the very best that we can, because the children are our future. And I'm committed to that. It does not mean that we will not on occasion have some disagreements about funding sources and what is the best approach here and there. But overall, I think that we have local elected officials, state officials right down from the governor, president on down, all committed to ensuring that we have a very good educational system. And we excelled in it. We provide over 50% of our $4.7 billion budget to public education. That's an enormous amount of money. but we have an expectation that when we send our kids off, the 149,000 students that we have, no matter the challenges that we face, that we're going to do the very best by those students. And when you have a large system as we have, and it's really a very large system, right at 150,000 students, it is the best large public school system in the entire country. But you take that fact into consideration, that we're dealing with a very diverse student body. A large number of our students will farm or have challenges. We have many different languages that are spoken in our school system. And to have the kinds of performance, given the kinds of makeups that we have in our school system, I think is a tremendous honor and a very good sign of success for the teachers who teach in our system, the administrators, also for the parents and the public who are providing the resources to make all of this happen.
One of the visions of Dr. Stott is, of course, that every student in Montgomery County should have three major components to accomplish. Obviously, academic, be prepared for the 21st century, and also social and emotional skills. How is that accomplished in a system as diverse as ours, where you have some minority groups that do not have a one-on-one contact with the school system at this point, because the parents perhaps are not accustomed to doing that culturally?
Well, first of all, it cannot be done exclusively within the school system. The school system can help to be a role model and to push and to urge and support all of those things. But a part of what you've just described must happen within our community, within the parents as well at home. But what we must do is work together and eliminate some of those barriers on the other side of that social economic challenge that we have. To the degree that parents are not involved in the system, hurts the system, hurts the schools, hurts the individual pupils. So we need to remove some of those challenges that may preclude them from not being able to be as actively involved. Some of the social challenges related to housing and other things that may impede that. So the school system can be a model, it can be a leader, it can help, but it cannot do those things alone. It must have the support of the broader community, both the private and the public sector, assisting the school system in helping to provide that foundation so that those 3 points that Dr. Stott outlined become the components for what we have in a successful system.
And what do you consider? I mean, you are a father and a grandfather, not a great-grandfather yet, right?
Not yet.
Not quite yet.
Yeah.
But what would you say makes a successful student in Montgomery County?
I think the most successful thing, in my opinion, is parental involvement and community involvement. If you have a parent who is actively engaged, a parent who are setting the examples, the school system itself, if you're there, if you're engaged, if you want to learn, if you come prepared, willing, and have the attitude that you want to learn, this system will get you there. The problem is lack of attendance, other challenges you have, kids who are hungry, kids who are ill-fed, not having the proper equipment. All of those things come from someplace else outside of the school system. So if you got those things in place, this is an excellent system. You get you in those doors and you are prepared to learn, you will in fact succeed in this system.
Community engagement and communication with the
Right.
school are basic keys. Let's switch the topic a little bit and talk about the recent special assembly in Annapolis and the governor signing pretty much gambling in the state. What's your take on it?
Well, he didn't sign gambling in the state. What he signed was a referendum
The referendum.
that may
That-
allow for gambling in the state if the voters in fact approve that. And sometimes we're a little confused about that. All this entire battle was about was whether or not there would be a referendum so that the voters can decide. And what they're looking at this point in time is simply to expand gambling to include some table gambling and to ensure that you have a site in Prince George's County. Now, the big issue about gambling, I was 4 scores against all of this 4 or 5 years ago, and I had been a strong opponent of any form of gambling in the state of Maryland. But one of the things that I realized is that, the horse is out of the barn, and we're literally closing the doors behind the horse and assuming that we can keep gambling out. We have gambling in Maryland. Gambling exists in Montgomery County. People go to the lotteries each and every day. People are getting on buses, and they are going to West Virginia, and they're going to Pennsylvania, and they're going to Delaware. Maryland citizens, and are literally taking dollars out that could be used for our school system, for our roads, for our infrastructure, and many other things that we need in Maryland. So the question at this point in time is not whether or not we have gambling or gaming. The question is, how do we best manage it in order to ensure that we have a very safe and appropriate level that we can have predictable income that is fair to everyone across the board. That's the real question before us today.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about another items that will be on that November ballot that are of interest not only to Marylanders, but Montgomery County residents as well. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to 101 with Montgomery County Executive Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Well, let's continue talking about the November 6th ballot. It's going to be filled with a lot of items, including the DREAM Act, the Marriage Equality, Montgomery County Police Bargaining, hiring people with disabilities. What do you tell county residents?
Well, you're not through yet.
Oh, no, that's just the beginning.
Yeah, okay. You're not through because you also have to include the state matters as well, which we just talked about. That is, of course, gaming, and whether or not the voters will approve that as well. In addition to that, you're voting for the President of the United States, for a U.S. Senate race in Maryland this time, as well as for the congressional races that will be on the ballot as well. So all of those things provide for some level of confusion. And unfortunately, because some of our voters only vote every 4 years, they don't vote in the off-year elections, you have a large number of, quote, newer voters voted. I would urge and hope that people will continue to vote every 2 years or every time there's a matter on the ballot to vote. But some people, unfortunately, are coming to the polls for the first time in 4 years. So you have a relatively long ballot, a large number of controversial issues, and the airways will be filled with all of the advertisements about the various matters that are out there. I hope that people take the time to read, to look at, to examine, so that you go to the polls fully prepared to vote on all the items on the ballot. Now, here's what oftentimes happens for the casual voter, the voter that only shows up every so often. Many of those will not go all the way down the ballot. They may just simply come in and vote for president, maybe U.S. Senate, and maybe for Congress, oftentimes just for president, and not look at the down ballot issues that are on the ballot that will include the kinds of referendums that we have. These are important matters, and I would hope that citizens, whatever your position may be, that you read, understand the magnitude of the issues that we're facing, and come prepared to look at the entire ballot and vote accordingly.
And take advantage of the early voting as
That's
well,
right.
because it's going to be long lines
Yeah.
with a long ballot to referendum questions to look
Yeah,
at.
more that you're prepared, it reduces the line because you could go in and vote quickly.
And
But
just-
if you're coming in and looking at these matters for the first time and you want to get engaged, it may be a long process, and therefore the lines will be backed up as a result.
Exactly. Let's talk about a couple events that are taking place in the county. Number one, you hosted a reception for some Olympian medalists that are residents of Montgomery County. Did you watch much of the Olympic Games?
I did. I didn't see it all live. Well, even when I saw it on tape, it was secondhand to some degree because it wasn't live from London to begin with. And I tried not to listen to the messages about who had won and who had lost, but we are fortunate in Montgomery County to have a gold medalist in Montgomery County that we'll be honoring. And we had a couple of other Olympians as well in Montgomery County that we'll be honoring as well. And we've honored those not only because of the, in one case, a gold medalist, but we're honoring them because of the participation, the Olympic spirit, that be role models, examples for our young people to follow. To dedicate or commit yourself to a particular area and go about that in a way that is the highest form of sportsmanship, and the Olympic spirit really provides that. So it's an opportunity for us in Montgomery County to be so engaged with our Olympians in a way that I think reflects the value of the sport itself.
Okay, let me mention the two Olympians that you honor. One of them was Katie Ledecky. She was the
Ledecky.
women's 800-meter freestyle gold medalist, and also Scott Parsons kayaking.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that were here in your office. The Jazz Festival, annual Jazz
wonderful.
Festival.
Yes, wonderful, large attendance. We've had so many jazz festivals over the years that have been so well attended, and this is no exception. It's a way of bringing the community together around great music. It's a way of bringing in some outside entertainers who come into the county and to provide Silver Spring with its sort of anchor as an entertainment district. And people have to keep in mind that Silver Springs is an entertainment district, and the Jazz Festival is just one component of a year-long set of smaller festivals. And events that occur in Silver Spring. But it's an opportunity to come together for great music, and this year was no exception with the exciting music we've had in Silver Spring.
Last but not least, during the summer, the month of August, MC 311 extended its hours of operation to 7 p.m., an additional 2 hours of operators handling calls from county residents for services and information. That's one of the things that you're actually proud of, aren't you?
Oh, very much so, because one of the things that I indicated that I wanted to do when I was running for this office, that I did not feel that the citizens received the kind of response that they needed in terms of the great bureaucracy that we have in Montgomery County. First of all, I wanted to streamline the bureaucracy, which we've done. Secondly, make it much more user-friendly, and we've done that in terms of technology. But thirdly, for those who need direct services, who need to talk to someone, that we have a record of it, that you can call, that you engage with a live person, and that you can get the kind of contact that you need to resolve the questions and concerns that you may have. It is difficult to do that without a system that provides some level of accountability, and 311 has done that. The extension of the hours, I think, is a testament to the service that we've provided thus far, and the need that we need to extend it even further because of the tremendous demands that we have out there.
And that would handle approximately an additional 3,000 calls a month for a
Yes.
grand total of approximately, what, 43,000 calls.
43,000 a year. That's a large number.
It is a large number. Well, Mr. Liggett, thank you so much for sharing the show with us again today. And I suppose we'll see you next month. I'm sure it'll be busy. It's the beginning of fall
Yes.
season, and it's not nonstop in Montgomery County.
Certainly is.
Good to see you, and hopefully you can take some vacation at some point.
Oh, it's going to be challenging.
All right. And for you that are watching, thank you. For any information regarding Montgomery County, remember to visit montgomerycountymd.gov or call 311. I'm Lorna Virgili, and thank you for watching.